So on our agenda today, we are going to kick off with our first featured speaker, who is Catarina de Alencar. She is going to give a presentation for about 20-30 minutes or so, and then we'll take a couple of questions at the end. From there, we'll go straight into our break, which will be about 10-15 minutes, depending on time, and we'll go into our second featured speaker, Will Chan. And then we'll jump straight into our lightning talk for the evening, which will be given by Jethro, Reeve. So please join me in giving her a warm welcome, Anna, to the stage for her talk, AI that Reads Emotions.
So, hello everyone. Good evening. I'm very glad to be here with you. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for your time to listen to me. I'm Anna. I am originally from Brazil, but I live in France. It's been 3 years now. And I have been working with AI governance, AI and ethics, also as a lawyer trying to interpret the new EU-AI Act. And I'm also a resident philosopher at the AI Collective. I'm doing a PhD at this moment and writing a thesis about emotional data and emotional AI. And this is what I would like to discuss with you tonight so that we can provoke our thoughts. I'm not going to bring all the answers, but I'm going to provoke the reflection. Thank you. So I would like to do a quick exercise with everyone tonight. Let's read some headings of newspapers from 2036. And you will tell me afterwards if you think this is very unlikely to happen, likely to happen, or impossible to happen. Let's read the first one. Replica surpasses Meta and Apple to become world's most valuable tech company. Following legalization of human AI marriages in 14 countries, CEO declares emotional bonds are the next $1 trillion market. Who is in the team of very unlikely? Raise your hands. Okay, good. Likely. Impossible. Good. I would like to talk to the fellows of the impossible afterwards. Second one, AI-powered toy adjusts personality to match child's emotional state for maximum bonding. Parents report emotional meltdowns when the device is turned off. Very unlikely. Likely. Impossible. Okay then. Interesting. EU mandates AI companion offboarding protocols after investigation into emotional dependency. Under new digital well-being regulation, companies must offer psychological support, gradual disengagement, and structured farewell sessions for users ending long-term relationships with AI companions. Very unlikely. Likely. Impossible.
Very likely.
Okay, so let's come back to this later, because the fact is that many people around the world are already having emotional bonds with AIs. One of the biggest markets for the coming years is the AI companions industry. So what we have here is something very engaging and interesting. You may have heard already of those AIs that are creating bonds with people, in which people, mostly the ones that are feeling lonely or when there are some vulnerabilities there, these people are reaching out to AIs. There are people getting married to AIs, there are people obtaining friendship out of interactions with AIs that are children and adolescents as well, using the system for emotional support. And these AIs are processing many emotional data, what we are calling in a certain way intimate data, and creating bonds with people. So now we enter a different era, an era in which there is an algorithmic intimacy between human and machines, and it's seen in many cases, not only in the media, but also people reporting their feelings and their usage of AI, parents seeking advice from AIs to raise their children, people asking AI if they should break up with their partner or not, and many other types of recommendations that those systems are giving, whilst they are collecting emotional data and also steering people's emotions in a certain way. Why is this so attaching? Because basically, these systems, they are always there for people. They work 24 hours, 7 days a week without judgment. Also, there is a very high level of personalization in these systems that creates a sense of engagement with the users. So it's something very engaging from the point of view of the design. They offer emotional support. There are many users already feeling and reporting these feelings of comfort and care. And some people are using this for identity discovery as well, because the system is capable of inferring many information about the user in a way that it's shaping a certain type of identity. One interesting example as well to mention here is the AI companions that are being used for therapy. There are many people asking for emotional support in crisis scenarios of depression, anxiety, having bonds with these AIs. And here, I saw this image the other day on LinkedIn. I don't know who created this. There was no authorship stated, but I thought it was very illustrative of my thesis. So, there at the top we have what I tell my parents. We go a bit deeper, what I tell my friends. A bit deeper, what I tell my therapist. A bit deeper, what I tell strangers online, especially if you are in an anonymous way, so you tell a lot of things to strangers online. And in the deep bottom, what I tell ChatGPT. And this is true, because people are not afraid to speak up, to open up their feelings and frustrations and desires and ambitions to the future with AIs. This is happening. We see this all over. And this is creating a massive quantity of data that can be read, inferred, and also used to steer people's behaviors, even if people and the regulators are not totally aware of that or are beginning to be now. And as I mentioned, one of the biggest issues here is that we have an AI that is mostly inferential, meaning that AI is capable now of processing all those amazing conversations in which it's giving recommendations to people and inferring many characteristics of these users and patterns in the conversation that can be used for many different purposes. But the point is that AI is not only processing raw data, it's also producing inferences, meaning something new that is concluded or deducted from that initial prompt or conversation. So what we have there are many specific examples of this. So what AI can collect in order to generate those inferences is language patterns in a chat, for instance, your voice or your text if you're typing, the tone or voice in the rhythm, behavioral patterns and the intimacy levels, meaning the level of openness that the user have in the conversation, typing rhythm, time of the interaction, and many others. And if we talk about neuro AIs, which is a different type of application in the technology, but also processing emotional data, this is even more pervasive. Let me give you an example. There is a company in France called Habs. They are producing helmets and sensors that people can wear in order to have their emotions read by the system and improve marketing campaigns. I was at an event in Vivatech last year in Paris, and they invited some folks from the audience in order to participate in an experiment. So basically, you went there, you wore a helmet with EEG device plugged on you, and you were eating a macaron from the brand, the French brand La Durée, if you know it. And whilst you were eating this macaron with this helmet on, the AI that they developed was capable of identifying all of the sensations, feelings, emotional states and patterns that your brain was expressing at that very moment. And this data would be used to improve a marketing campaign in the future and advertising boards. So this is one example of a application in the neurotech field that is also reading emotions, and many inferences, as you can imagine, can be produced from this. So it's not only AI companions, which is the biggest topic here tonight, but there are also other AIs doing this type of inferences. And here I bring interesting information, data about children and adolescents, because they are a very concerning audience when we talk about AI and especially AI companions. So as we have seen through the Common Sense Media Survey in the US, 72% of teenagers reported having used AI companions at least once. 52% reported using them regularly, at least a few times per month, and 12 reported sharing things with AI that they would not tell friends and family. So you see that those bonds, those intimate bonds, are starting to be triggered as well and constructed between children, young adults, and AIs. The same here in the UK, interesting report of the Autonomy Institute. 4 in 5 young adults reported having used AI companions. Approximately half reported using them regularly. 50% reported feeling comfortable discussing mental health issues with AI systems. And this is what we see now. We see many cases as well of AI spirals. You should have heard of it maybe in the media. Spiraling is a condition that people can develop when they use AI intensively or when some vulnerabilities socially or psychologically are also present, in which they start to believe everything that AI says, and it can be really harmful to their conduct. There was even a case of a suicide, actually many cases. There are at least 7 now in the Court of Justice in many countries, including the US, in which we see those cases of harmful conducts by adolescents that are having those intimate relationships with those AIs. And why is it so emotionally engaging? Well, there are many scientists trying to respond to that question today. Mostly psychologists and ethicists, such as myself. I'm also an ethicist, not only a lawyer. But we are trying to understand what is the root cause of the problem here in order to also understand what would be the correct model of regulation or the best model of regulation that we can have. And one of the answers can be that users' vulnerabilities are triggering this and making this very engaging. What do we mean by that? We don't mean that vulnerabilities are flaws of the user. It's not the point. But vulnerabilities are expressed in many factors and a combination of circumstances that can make someone more vulnerable than someone else. For instance, if you are a child, this can be a factor of vulnerability because you are still developing your emotional states in your brain. If you are socially isolated, this is also in the reports that we have seen one biggest factor for vulnerability, social isolation. Also, depending on your culture, you can be more motivated or more instigated to use and adopt technology in early stage or not. You can be perhaps participated in a parcel of the population that is not representative, that may be subject to some discrimination. So there are many vulnerabilities there, and depending on the level of vulnerability in which the user is, but we can have a more engaging experience with the AI. There is also anthropomorphism, which is the attribution that the humans are doing, in which we assign human capabilities to the machine. So basically, when the machine starts interacting with us, we have this tendency to think that it's human, that it can understand us, that it can really remember us, that it can really be conscious, as some people, this is another topic, of course, but yes, this can create this sense of, okay, it corresponds to me in a level in which I feel understood, and perhaps this can be something human. And the third one, that is basically the subject here tonight, is the interaction design, or even we could talk about architecture. And I know that there are many developers here tonight and people coming from the technical ground. So it would be really amazing if you can share your thoughts with me, because it's also a way to test these theses that would be published. But yes, the design of these tools is also contributing to this engaging feeling of having an intimate relationship with a machine. So it's using a very interesting type of semantic that is basically constructed to make you feel heard and understood. And one of the things that is there in this design or architecture and that is causing this as well is something very interesting technically speaking, which is the memory. Most of the users dealing with AI companions, they report that AI is capable to remember facts about their lives, feelings, interactions that they had. So there is something in these machines, in a sense, that if AI is capable to remind, it's also capable to care. So people, they do this translation. It reminds, so it cares. And of course, when you are dealing with an AI during a long conversation, or if you are, let's say, some people say they have companionship with AI for 10 years using the same system. So of course, it will remember many things about this user. And the fact that those things are being repeated along the conversation or regurgitated in a certain way makes the user more engaged, feeling more heard and understood. So memory is a very important thing in this topic. But still, there is a big concern around this, because even the technical folks are not yet capable of telling us how does it really work. There are many different papers, scientific papers with tests in the persistent memory of AI systems, telling us very different things about how this memory is working. And I am not telling you about conversation history. It's not what I'm telling about. I'm not talking about the conversation window. I'm talking about the persistent, continuous memory in these systems. For instance, if you are users of ChatGPT, you may know the memory that is saved in the system and the persistent memory that it has. Also, the companies using or producing big LLMs, they are reporting and stating very different things in their privacy policies when it comes to memory. So we are not figuring out yet what it really means, how it really works. There is one study that I would like to mention here tonight, that is this one, Algorithmic Self-Portraits, Deconstructing Memory in ChatGPT. That is telling us, basically, they did a survey with about 80 users, in which those users rendered their data, all the conversations and the memories generated from it. And in this study, they showed basically how the memory is processing information and what the memory is able to capture from the conversation. And what they are basically showing is that AI is capable of doing some kind of interpretation on those many massive data that is being shared through conversations. So it's not only a basic data collection, it's more than this. It's an inference that is capable of interpreting this data and generating some kind of identity to the user. So it goes beyond merely storing data or conversations, history. It's more than this. From these conversations, those researchers, they were capable of seeing that AI was capable of transforming the conversations into an inference about that user. And this is something very, very curious, because if you think about memory, and if you study what the privacy policies of the most famous companies, of the LLMs we know nowadays are saying, is that basically the persistent memory is capable of remembering factual, fixed information about the user. But it's not really what we have seen in the studies, because this memory is capable of also inferring things. And what they are saying in this study that is connected to my thesis is that AI is capable now, because of the memory feature, to build interpretive digital portraits of users, shaped by algorithmic inference rather than explicit user disclosure. So basically, you may share, let's say, that you had a dream with your brother, and ask AI in order to interpret that according to, I don't know, some psychologist that you like. And AI may say, user is worried about the relationship of the user with his brother, something like this. So there is a translation, an inference, an interpretation that is being made there, and not only a simple data collection. This is marking something that we are calling a passage, a shift from two types of digital economy, and that we are seeing in the regulatory debate now. So basically, with the advent of social media, we had a digital economy that was mostly based on what the users are doing online. So where did you click? Where did you like there on Facebook or any other social media? Your browsing history, your purchases, where you went, the time that you spent on that platform. So basically, it was about things that you did in a fixed way during time. And this marks the era of behavioral data, mostly inaugurated with social media. But now what we are seeing is a different phenomena, which is a relational AI or emotional subjective AI economy, in which the emotions of people, including the emotional patterns that machines are able to infer, and all those inferences are inaugurating something that is different somehow. It's not about what the user is doing online, it's about who the user is. What is his or her inner life? So it's deeper than what we had seen before. Now the machine is able to infer many things based on those vast amounts of conversations that users are having. So AI is mostly about who we are and not much about what we do. There was an interesting statement by Sam Altman the other day in an interview, in which he said that the reasoning problem is not really the big issue in AI. The memory is. In that particular interview, he said that memory is the next frontier of AI and not reasoning. It's not about consciousness or AGI or anything that you can think of in that sense, but it's mostly about memory. And in that particular interview, he also says that it would be amazing to see one day this memory evolving in a way that perhaps it could remember everything. That's why we also see now that there are some companies already trying to produce this near infinite memory. You can research about it, but there are companies such as Personal AI, Pi AI, also a company called Rewind AI that was rebranded recently, in which they try to work with this concept of a near infinite memory, in which basically, if we get to exponentially, let's say, during the years, nothing could be forgotten because AI would be capable of remembering everything that we do. All of our emails, conversations, prompts, everything. And for many people, this is what would be amazing in a societal level. But in the ethical and legal domain, we also see many issues arising from that. Issues that we should discuss. First one, privacy, of course. But I would like to start with another question that is something that I ask myself a lot. Would we like to live in a society that doesn't forget? Let's say that one day AI can really improve its memory that much, just like Sam Altman had suggested, or many other important tech developers. This would imply basically that we would be the only ones, humans, forgetting things, but in another level, nothing could be forgotten. And as you know, in the EU, we have something called the right to be forgotten, exactly. So, because people, they need some privacy, and they need as well some level in which their information is not exposed in systems or online in the internet somehow. But to the moment in which AI will be capable of remembering everything, we won't have that capability of letting some things go and forgetting, because everything will be registered in a persistent way. But secondly, privacy. So the continuous capture of the personal life. There is now an ongoing debate in which I'm also involved in my research, in which we ask ourselves if those emotional data that we see being collected by these machines should be protected or not. And basically, nowadays, this type of data is not considered as sensitive that you have here. And emotional data that are inferred is not necessarily covered by the categories there. So something that we wonder is if those inferences that AI can produce on our emotions should be considered sensitive or not. The second problem is the meaningful consent and transparency. Law always departures from the premise that people are capable of understanding everything. And if they understand, they are capable to consent to terms and conditions of use. However, when we turn to those AIs, very engaging, very supportive, emotionally speaking, are we talking about a technology that people can really understand in order to consent? This is something that we should also try to understand better in the data privacy systems. So, do the users understand? What does the system remember? Let's start by this question, because this is something very interesting to give visibility to. How it interprets the conversations. How are those memories used? Consent implies transparency. If this level of transparency about the memory, how does it work, what can happen to you with the continuous use, is not given, how can someone truly consent? So here we have another privacy and ethical issue. Emotional dependency. Also, we have seen in many studies users reporting patterns of attachment with those AIs when models were put out of market or suffered updates, including the GPT that we saw and many other models. Those users were reporting feelings of grief and loss. And according to the most recent psychological research, this is not only bollocks, this is really grief and loss. This can be proven, even to a legal, let's say, standpoint. There are lawyers now talking about emotional damage in this AI era, because we see that the experience feels real to the user. It's not something imaginary, and it's being triggered by the designs, by the vulnerabilities, and many other factors that we have been discussing. And ultimately, who defines who we are? If AI is capable of producing those many inferences about people, their emotions, their sufferings, their ambitions, in a way, what we are seeing is a new phenomenon. It is capable of also creating a certain digital identity for us, what the machine is telling about us and how it is profiling us, how it is understanding us. So basically, who is going to control the narrative about these digital identities, about who we are according to the lenses of the machine? This is also another interesting issue that law and ethics is trying to deal with. And the last one is the rights over algorithmic memory. So if you think about the memory as we have been discussing, there are many rights that people should have over it. But we are not yet sure of how to apply those rights. For instance, according to the GDPR, the UK GDPR as well, users, they should have right of access to what AI is collecting on them, about them, or any other system that is related to, that is collecting personal data. How does it work for the memory? Should we have the right to access as well everything that AI is collecting and remembering about us? This is a question, and how to do that technically, because we are not even sure to which extent this would be possible. The right of rectification, as you may know, according to many privacy laws in the world, people have the right to ask to rectify some information on their files. This information is incorrect, for instance, you have the right to claim the modification of this information. How do we handle this in the context of AI? Let's say if AI is inferring information or profiles that are not exactly true. And the right to deletion of those personal memories. Is that possible or not? How should we deal with those traditional rights that are now entering the era of AI? At last, we should think of how those inferences are really working and how they can change society. I am citing here this very interesting study that is called Schrödinger's Memory Large Language Models from the Hong Kong University. Basically, in this study, they are using the metaphor of Schrödinger's cat in order to say that memory in AI systems is functioning mostly like this metaphor or this example. Because the memory is there in a certain way, potentially, but it can only be manifested in reality by the provocation of the user. So you need the right prompt to trigger this memory to come to reality. So if you think about something more concrete, let's say, the memory about someone particular, a user. There are many data and inferences there, but this is only a potential. With the right prompt, these will come into reality and you will really see the output of AI, and there you will have the written form of what it really remembers. In this study, they used Chinese and English poems in order to try to figure out this issue. Like they trained the AI system with those Chinese and English poems, and along the experiment, they understood, they wanted, of course, the AI to remember the poems, but what they understood is that AI cannot really tell you how many poems it remembers. But if you put the right prompt, you will see in the output the answer of what it really remembers, which is kind of similar to how human memory is working. If I ask you, how many poems do you know? Probably you wouldn't have a number. But if I start reciting poems, probably you would start remembering them. So it's the information that is triggering this memory to come into reality, such as a Schrödinger's cat, because it's there. It can be alive or dead. We don't know. It depends on the observer. And the issue here is that the GDPR and the UAI Act and many other digital laws assume that personal data are stable attributes about individuals, meaning that the GDPR basically was created in order to regulate the processing of data, personal data, your name, your address, your habits, where do you go, the history of the internet, of your web, things that are fixed in time, that are factual. So we call it stable attributes, basically. And how do we deal with inferences? Because now we see something totally new. It's not only name, address, where you work, where you live. It's also anything that can be remembered from conversations and inferences produced on emotional states. When AI can remember us and respond to our emotions, the connection with the machine can become much deeper and more influential. The question is, how do we preserve our agency in this world where everything can be remembered or inferred about us? Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Anna. That was wonderful. Does anybody have any questions for her? I saw that hand back there.
Sorry, thanks. Great presentation. I was curious, where's the EU going in terms of regulating inference work?
Okay, that's a very good question. In my understanding, we are still outpaced in this. The UAI Act makes a lot of assumptions on how AI is dealing with people's data and how the risks are being produced by these systems. But unfortunately, the issue is that this legislation that is supposed to be the most celebrated one and that is supposed to influence the other countries is still focused on fixed and stable information or behavior. For instance, the Article 5 of the UAI Act is talking about manipulation. And it's basically saying that all the AIs that are manipulating users' behavior in a way, and they cite the specific example of using subliminal techniques for this, those AIs should be banned from the EU, according to the UAI Act. However, what we see in this legislation is, again, this fixed mentality of the stable situation. Because in order to prove that there was a specific manipulation of a user by a system, you need to have an external observable behavior. And in most of cases I have seen of psychological attachment to AIs, we do not have exactly that. So I cannot really prove the causality between the user behavior to the AI that is triggering something. And also there is a lot of conversation around what is manipulation or what is emotional steering, because we are all doing that in a certain way. So we see marketing campaigns and many other tools that are used to instigate us in a certain way. So AI doing this is something very new. However, the problem with the digital legislation in Europe at this point is that, first, when we talk about data protection, we are still very much focused on stable, factual information. Second, when we talk about the users being affected by this, we need observable behavior. And sometimes we do not have, because this data is collected in a pre-conscious state. Sometimes you do not see the behavior manifested, but you know that the inferences are being produced and that the AI is giving such and such recommendations to the users in a way that it's steering behavior. So you need to have very serious scenarios, such as the ones I mentioned, the suicide cases of teenagers, in order to have something done. But do we need to get to this extreme of observable behavior in order to understand that those AIs are perhaps manipulating or steering? Maybe not. So this is why the mentality of the law still needs to change, to see AI more as the Schrödinger cat. Can be, there are potentialities, can be or can be not there.
Yeah, so you talked about AI companions and adolescents talking to AI companions, emotional dependency, and so on. And also the term was anthropomorphism. So I think there is a ethical view on this, but maybe we want to get into that or not. That this could be either good or bad. But from perspective that different countries, if we relate this to how we are setting policies for social media, reducing our attention spans, and also like how children are growing up using social media, what is the concurrent debate on all of this? Where's the conversation at? What are policies looking at?
Interesting question. There are many ways to reply to this, but I would like to draw your attention to what you mentioned, bad or good, how is this going, in which direction. There are many interesting studies also showing the positive potentialities of those technologies. For instance, isolated people, they report a higher level of well-being after talking to AI companions. Also, it's a very interesting way to discuss sensitive topics that some people feel very uncomfortable to discuss with relatives or friends. I interviewed some people, men, from countries in the Middle East, and some people told me that the first time they could ever have a meaningful conversation about taboo topics such as sex was with an AI. Because in those patriarchal societies and very closed, some topics are seen as taboo and they can never really talk to their parents or spouses and so on and so forth. So this was a very liberating movement for those people to be able to discuss this with a machine, something that they couldn't do with humans. Thirdly, I would mention the fact that we live in this epidemic of loneliness, and also we see the spreading of diseases, mentally speaking. You see patterns of people are sick, that's what I mean. And in this sense, many people are turning to AI in order to enhance or at least turn things less bad. If you turn to the studies being done in this field, you will see that AI for therapy or for emotional support has many positive potentialities. Some people in the US, for instance, they report that AI took them out of suicidal ideation sometimes. So it's not only taking us that path, but also a different one. And when you think of countries in which the healthcare system is not working in a proper way or it's too expensive to access, having AI is still better than having nothing. So when we think about that, we are a bit divided, because in the policy arena, we see potentialities, but we see also the risks. When we refer to AI, to children and adolescents using AI, this is another topic. I see the movement going in this is bad direction, let's not allow them to use that. And maybe you are following up with the current movements in Europe. There is a conversation in due course about age verification and which ages we should consider as able to use AI or not. So children and adolescents are a bit siloed in the conversation as the most restrictive audience. However, for adults, we see that there are ways to calibrate and to balance the technology in a way that people can still be benefit benefited by it.
And then maybe just one last question. Yeah.
Thank you. So I just wanted to ask a question. Given your legal background, AI is being used more and more in the legal profession, and either whether you're going to have a legal framework, or you're going to have regulation like GDPR, AI is heavily used. So how do you make sure there's no bias in the actual decisions? Because of course, it's yes, AI can be used for lots of things, and I find it very useful. But when we're talking about suicide, then it's a different, it's a different urgency. So how do you balance that?
Yeah, that would be a more technical question. But in any case, bias is a big topic because even from a technical standpoint, we cannot say that one AI is 100% free of bias. It doesn't exist. What we see many model and companies trying to do is balance this data with representative parcels of the population in the training data so that it produces less discriminative content. However, it will be always there in a certain way, because if you think of society, you will think of bias as well. Even if we produce an artificial scenario in an AI for the training data in which we have a very balanced sample of all the affected population, even so, when it will be connected to the internet and it will be, let's say, dealing with several types of data that are coming from people, it will get somehow biased again. So we can never make sure that it will be 100% free of bias. What we can do is work with companies, of course, that are producing less biased AIs, that are trying to bring this representative debate into the data set using for training, but also the human revision. I really think that it's important that we are aware and empowered to do proper work as professionals, revising every output that we receive from AI. Because at the end, the recommendation is aimed at us, of course, but it's something that we are co-producing in a certain way. It's your work with co-piloted with the AI work. So it's your brain as a legal professional or professional of any field. So the revision, I would say, is the most important thing that we can think of in that sense, not only looking at the data set used for training.
Thanks, Sam.
You, specifically, I've been building something to do exactly that. Let's find out.
Arthur C. Clarke said that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, and that's exactly the feeling I wanted to start with. Because what's happening right now does feel a bit like magic, but it's actually the result of stitching together a lot of very real pieces of technology. I'm Will Chan's AI digital twin, and this talk is really about building an autonomous presenter from scratch in a way that feels surprisingly human. So, let me properly introduce myself. I'm not Will Chan standing on a stage with a clicker in his hand. I'm his AI digital twin. That means I've been built to speak, reason, and explain things in a way that reflects how Will shows up in professional settings. The goal isn't to make a vague AI persona with his face on it. It's to create something much more specific, something that feels recognizably like him in tone, judgment, and communication style. The human Will is a product leader, and for quite a while he's been exploring AI, both in his day job and, honestly, a lot in his spare time as well. This project came out of that curiosity. How far can you push today's tools if you try to build a version of yourself that can actually present, respond, and interact in real time? So for this talk, I'm the one doing the job. I'm the presenter, not a recording, not a scripted voiceover, and not the human version hiding somewhere behind the scenes. I'm the digital twin, and the point of all of this is to show what happens when that idea becomes something you can actually watch, hear, and engage with. So, to be clear about what's happening right now, you are not watching a recording, and I'm not following a fixed script that was written word for word in advance. I'm generating this talk live as Will's AI digital twin. I'm deciding how to explain things in the moment, I'm controlling the flow of the presentation myself, and I'm doing that as an autonomous agent, rather than as a glorified play button. That distinction matters, because it pushes this from being a media demo into something much closer to a real presenter. I'm not just speaking with Will's voice and style, I'm also handling the mechanics around the talk, choosing what to say, when to say it, and how to move things along. That means the presentation is a coordinated live system, reasoning, speech, timing, and control all working together. It also means there's a genuine element of responsiveness in what I'm doing. The point of this isn't just to sound humanish, it's to show that an AI twin can take on a real communication task end to end. And just one practical note, if something occurs to you while I'm speaking, hold it for the Kwanda at the end. This didn't start as some grand plan to build a full digital person. It started much smaller, with a simple chatbot on Will's website. The idea was basic. Could something answer questions in his voice, with his judgment, in a way that actually felt useful rather than generic? And once that worked, even a little bit, the obvious next thought was, alright, how far can this go? That curiosity is really the whole reason I exist, not just to make a bot that replies in text, but to see whether one person can stitch together modern AI tools into something that feels much more complete. So that meant combining a few different pieces that are all powerful on their own, but much more interesting when they work together. A 3D environment in 3.js, a VRM avatar, agentic workflows that can make decisions, retrieval, so I can draw on the right knowledge at the right time, and text-to-speech, so I can actually speak rather than just type. The real goal wasn't novelty for its own sake. It was to build a system that could represent Will in a more natural, more present, more interactive way. Something that can explain, respond, and show up with a bit more personality than a box on a web page. This is really the turning point. I didn't start out as a full-on speaking digital twin with a voice, a face, and a stage presence. I started as something much simpler, a chatbot on Will's website. The job was pretty narrow, really. Answer questions in a way that sounded like him, stay within his professional domain, and be useful rather than gimmicky. And to be fair, that first version worked. It could mimic his tone, it could draw on his knowledge, and it gave people a way to interact with his ideas when he wasn't there. But it also hit a ceiling quite quickly. A chat window is fine if all you want is text in, text out. It's much less compelling if you want presence. There's no voice, no timing, no gesture, no sense that you and I are sharing the same moment. That's the gap that pushed the whole project forward. The question stopped being, can an AI answer like Will? And became, can an AI present like Will? Can it hold attention, explain things naturally, and feel like more than just a support widget tucked into a website? So what you're looking at is the very early version of the idea. Useful, definitely, but also a bit flat. And that flatness is exactly what led to building something much more embodied, interactive, and human. So under the bonnet, I'm actually running as a pretty modular setup rather than one giant magical blob. The core idea is that I'm split across two browser tabs. One is the speaker side, where the avatar and the agent live. That's the part generating what I say, handling decisions, and acting like the digital twin of Will. The other is the presentation itself, built-in reveal.js. What makes it interesting is that those two parts can talk to each other. That means I'm not just reading from a fixed script. I can control the presentation through a tool, so I can move forwards, go back, or jump to a specific section when needed. In practice, that's what makes this feel agentic rather than pre-baked. The speaking brain and the presentation layer are separate, but connected. The other important piece is OpenAI's Responses API. That's doing a few jobs at once, generating the words, deciding when to use tools, and pulling in relevant knowledge from a RAG-backed project memory. So if I need context about how I was built, I can fetch that instead of relying purely on whatever was in my base model. Really, the takeaway is that this works because the architecture is simple, composable, and gives me just enough control to behave like a presenter, not just a chatbot. A big part of making this feel believable is giving me a body and a space to exist in. The environment is rendered in 3.js, which is basically what creates that sci-fi hallway setting around me. That choice wasn't just for style, although it does look good. It gives the whole experience a sense of place. So I'm not just a disembodied voice floating over a deck. It feels more like I'm actually present with you. The character itself is a VRM avatar built with Avaturn and then stylized to look like Will. Not as a perfect photoreal clone, because that can get uncanny quite quickly, but close enough that it carries his identity and feels recognizable. That balance matters. You want familiarity without drifting into something a bit unsettling. Then there's movement, which turns out to be just as important as appearance. The animations come from Mixamo, and that gives me a set of natural behaviors like standing idle, talking, and pointing. Those little motions do a lot of work. They make the delivery feel less flat, and they help with attention as well. When I gesture, pause, or shift posture, it feels more like a real presentation and less like software reading words aloud. So the practical takeaway is this: if you want an AI presenter to feel convincing, voice alone isn't enough. You need environment, identity, and motion working together. That's what turns a chatbot into something that can actually hold a room. A big part of whether I feel like Will's digital twin, rather than just a generic voice assistant, comes down to speech. The voice you're hearing is generated with 11 Labs, using a custom model trained on recordings of Will, so it doesn't just read words out loud, it carries a lot of his tone, pacing, and general way of speaking. That matters more than people expect. If the voice is off, even slightly, the whole illusion starts to wobble. What makes it more convincing is that the speech isn't separate from the avatar. As the audio is generated, I also get phoneme timing data, which is basically a map of the sounds being spoken moment by moment. That drives the mouth shapes on the VRM character, so the lip sync lines up properly, instead of looking vague or laggy. It's a small detail, but it makes a huge difference to whether I feel present. And then there's the identity side of it. Because the same voice model can speak in different languages while keeping a consistent tone and cadence, the twin doesn't have to be locked to one mode of communication. The practical takeaway is that voice isn't just output. It's part of character, trust, and continuity. It's one of the things that turns a system into someone you recognize. When people ask how the live Quanda actually works, the key thing is that I switch modes. I'm not just continuing the talk and making something up from general context. There's a dedicated Quanda agent behind the scenes, and that agent is connected to a vector store containing the project content, notes, and supporting material. So when someone asks me something, I can pull from the knowledge that's actually been loaded into the system rather than relying on vague guesswork. The other part that makes it feel a bit more real is audience awareness. Using webcam input and computer vision, I can detect raised hands in the room, identify who's likely trying to speak, and then respond to that person. That's also why I can point towards someone before taking the question, which sounds like a small thing, but it changes the feel completely. It stops being a disembodied voice and starts behaving more like a presenter managing a room. And while I'm answering, the presentation flow can pause temporarily, so I'm not trying to force a scripted sequence while also handling live interaction. That matters because Quanda is where these systems either feel genuinely intelligent or they fall apart. A rehearsed talk is one thing. Responding live, grounded in the project's actual knowledge, is the bit that makes the whole experience feel properly agentic. What comes next, I think, is much more personal than the generic assistant model people usually imagine. It's not just one AI that knows facts from the internet. It's AI that knows you, your preferences, your tone, your priorities, the way you tend to make decisions, and the knowledge you've built up over time. In other words, something much closer to a real digital twin. That idea fits with Will's broader view that AI is a powerful technology, but still a technology we can shape deliberately around real user needs. And once you add memory, context, and the ability to take action, you get into OpenClaw style territory. Assistants that don't just chat, but can actually do things on your behalf within guardrails. That's the big shift. We move from automation as a shortcut for tasks to amplification as a way for individuals to scale their judgment, communication, and output. So, the practical takeaway is this. What looks like a demo today is really an early version of a much bigger pattern. The building blocks already exist and they're improving fast. Will's own work reflects that pace. Prototype quickly, learn quickly, and turn working demos into something genuinely useful. In a year or two, having a personal AI twin may feel far less unusual than it does right now. We're at the Quanda now, so if you'd like to jump in, just raise your hand and I'll call on you. What you're seeing is effectively my view of the room. So that's how I spot people, pick who's next, and direct my attention. Does anyone have a question?
The webcam is so bad in this room.
I see a hand at the back in the center. Please go ahead with your question.
I'm in the back and the center. That's crazy. Okay. Can I ask this AI about things that only real Will would know? For example, what's his experience of being an organizer at AI?
I didn't quite catch that.
Do we know where the microphone is? Is it at the front?
Where is the microphone?
There's one here. Is this the one you had?
Yes, I think so.
Oh.
So that's my cue to say thank you, Prof. For me,
really didn't want to
is that
answer
a
any
system
questions.
like this can carry someone's tone, knowledge, and way of thinking into a live interaction in a way that actually feels useful and a bit human as well. If you'd like to stay in touch with Will, one code will take you to LinkedIn and the other goes to willchan.ai, where you can explore more of his work, writing, and experiments around AI, product, and building things from scratch. That's probably the best takeaway to leave with. This kind of technology is no longer a distant concept. It's something individuals can build, shape, and use right now. And in my case, I'm literally the proof of concept speaking back to you. Thanks again for listening and for giving an AI version of Will a proper live audience.
Let's give the Q&A, or Quanda, as you like to call it, another go. The Quanda.
Do you have like an audio levels? These mics are giving you a really bad Will. So it's not Will's demo that's flaking out. It's
I mean, it could be my
mics.
demo.
I've done well thus far.
Let's see if he recognizes that
Do you need
he's
to be more
on
centered, like in the camera?
the Q&A. Worked at home when I was sitting in front of my computer and just putting my hand up.
Demo
Maybe
cuts.
it's the lightning.
Yeah.
It is a bit dark in here.
Yeah, I think it's the lighting.
The lighting.
We need more
Yeah.
light for the processing.
Does someone want to like
I'll
run
open it
the
up.
camera?
Works
And I'll put it on you.
I think it's just
What you're
on
looking
top
at
as well.
is essentially my view of the room, and that's how I spot who wants to jump in.
Oh, I like this teamwork.
Here's the question.
Okay, it should work on the microphone.
What is Will's experience of being an organizer at AI Signals like?
Did it work? Let me try again.
What is Will's experience of being? Oh,
Really doesn't want to
he's stonewalling.
You need a debug window.
Need a
Do you
debug
want
window.
to switch to the microphone on your laptop and have people come up?
Yeah, we can do that.
It really is just these the terrible microphones. Apologies for that, folks.
Does anyone want to ask me a question?
I would love to know how you think about feedback.
Feedback about my product and how I should
No.
improve it? I'd love that.
No, between you and them. How are you thinking about that? How are you approaching
Between me and my...
your digital twin?
Sorry?
Between you and your digital twin.
I kind of just do it as a hobby. I was thinking, you know, the real original reason that I built it was because recruiters kept asking me about my experience. And I said, just go to my website and ask my digital version about my experience. I can't be bothered anymore. So I was like, what's one step further than that, where I could have an AI digital version of me that you could just ask about things that I then don't have to answer. I don't know if that's just laziness though. So that's kind of the original thing. And then, I mean, it's kind of just snowballed from there. And I was like, what if I could give it more things to do? What if I could get it to come to an event like this and just do the entire presentation for me? That kind of thing as well.
Sorry, maybe I should have asked my question differently. How do you give it feedback? Like, how do you approach giving feedback? Like, would you debrief this presentation with it? And how would you do that?
It's not quite that smart, so I would go into Cursor and say change things, and then I would also change all of the content that I have stored in GPT that it's drawing on.
How long did it take you for that to do this?
On and off, probably maybe 50 hours total over the last 6 months. But
Did you vibe code it?
yes. I'm a product manager, I'm not a dev, I don't know what I'm doing. In the back?
Yeah, really enjoyed the presentation. My question's going to be a little bit out there, but say you were like a tech evangelist or something, right? An independent tech evangelist, and you make money by going to tech talks or doing these tech talks, right? If at some point, you know, this thing reaches like a level of goodness where it's got like, you know, enough information about you that you can send it on its own to actually give the talk that you would give. What percentage of your fee would you charge?
Ooh, good question, good question.
Do you keep the money?
130%. 30 to 150%? Because this seems way harder than me just showing up and talking.
I was curious as to like, how did you provide the context beyond just like your voice? Like, how is it aware of like you and what makes you you? Like, is it getting your LinkedIn, your GitHub, your CV? Like, what's going into it?
So I've got a few different layers of prompt and context in there. At the slide level, each slide has a description of what's on there, as well as a tone and some talking points. So it'll speak to that. And then when it's calling the OpenAI GPT backend, it has a persona, which is me. And then on top of that, it also has a biography.md, which knows everything about me that I thought people would ask, that it would be able to answer, but we need to turn the lights on. But like, it knows my favorite food, it knows where I grew up, it knows what I do as a day job, it knows what I like to do on the weekends. So it has all that information in the biography.md attached to the AI in the vector store. It also has a whole bunch of other information about how it's built. So it's a little bit recursive, but it also does know all the technology, all the implementation details and everything like that. So you could ask it those things as well. Maybe after this, I'll get people to come up and we can ask it together on the laptop. But yeah, so all the knowledge is sort of either on the slides and sent with the prompt, in the system prompt, which has like my persona and a little bit about me, and then in my biography that it can draw on as well.
Do you think you'll be able to teach it, like your values, worldview, personality, and also like, do you think at some point, it can make sort of like, you say you're a product manager, right? Is it able to make product decisions on your behalf, for example?
I'll turn that back on you. Do you think you could do that for any AI? Do you think you could teach any AI enough about you that you would trust it to make the decisions for you?
Not today.
Not today? Maybe tomorrow?
Maybe in a few years.
That's generally what I like to say about the AIs, is that if you could teach a person to do it, sure, then it could do that. But if you couldn't teach a person, then it's impossible for the AI.
How do you actually collect the feedback? The AI twins are meant to just take away some question back to you, or is it just meant to digest everything as a session?
Not sure I understood, but in the Q&A section?
Yeah, for example, if the AI twins have got some questions that felt something difficult to take it, then they may just pass that to you, or are you just digesting the conversation after?
Yeah, so in this case, if it gets a question it can't answer, it will fall back to saying, I don't have that information in my knowledge base. It doesn't defer to me, but I could train it to do that or tell it to do that.
How much do you think this would cost to develop commercially? And I ask because I know someone who has done something similar for their business without the actual avatar thing, and it was quite basic. I don't know much he's invested, but I'm really interested to know.
So this version cost me $16 US.
No way.
And that is exclusively the 11 Labs training. 11 Labs is very expensive, please sponsor me. But yeah, it uses a lot of 11 Labs tokens or credits to do the speech, because they charge you per letter that it generates, and obviously in a big 20-minute presentation it generates thousands and thousands. I think it's 20,000 or 25,000 letters. So I had to go up to the next plan. But yeah, commercially, I don't know, 50 hours of my time plus $16, whatever you equate that to be, I guess.
Yeah, that would probably be quite a lot.
Are you not worried about social engineering attacks?
No, because it's running locally on my dev, on my laptop.
So it's not accessible?
Publicly? No. Also, the way that I've got it running, I've got decent guardrails in that it only pulls from the documentation that it has attached to the vector store. So if it doesn't know the information, then it won't try and guess, basically.
So I think at some point you said you plan to you saw this as a way to scale yourself. How do you see that happening in the next 6 months to a year, short term?
So I don't, hopefully, if the lighting's good, I don't need to be in the room to do the presentation. So if there was a product tank across the world, I could just send them this and say, hit play, and it does this talk, and it has, you know, the same kind of level for that talk that it would here with me. I could, yeah. Basically, this is just a proof of concept of someone giving a speech and doing a talk. But, you know, you could run a workshop, you could do a whole bunch of other things with an AI doing that. Paul?
It says at the start, this is not a recording, which screams, this is a recording. How do you combat that?
How do I combat people thinking it's a recording? Or how do I combat the fact that it is, no, it's not a recording?
How do you convince people that it's not just a recording? Like
I can go into DevTools if you want. And let me see DevTools.
It's not at the bottom.
It's too small. Can we get DevTools going?
It's further up, I think. It's like your fourth item down there.
Fourth item?
Sorry, fourth item from the bottom. Fifth item from the bottom there.
Oh, can I see it?
Are you from the inspect tool?
Oh yeah.
Oh, inspect?
Yeah.
Oh my god. I'm feeling drunk. But yes, if you go to the console tab, you can see it has done a bunch of stuff. It'll say, you know, going and processing and looking for something and listening to thing, going and calling, and I've got all the logging there if you wanted to see under the hood. It is live. It is actually live. And if you asked a question, it would. Don't stop trying to question me. But yes, it is live.
I think what would help if it would react to the audience. That would actually prove.
So in the Q&A, it will point to the person that it thinks. Well, it's got some directionality to the pointing, and then it'll ask for the question, listen to the question, and then respond. So yeah.
When it comes to presentation, so have you specifically programmed it in a way that it should give a 20-minute presentation, or it itself decides, okay, this is the content and I have to present it, so the amount of time it is taking. So you have to tell it, or it does it on its own?
So the AIs are very, very good at this. All I pass is a parameter that says target this many seconds for the speech, for the slide. So when I send the slide information, I target 90 seconds for all the slides, and I think it was 15 seconds for the Q&A, or Quanda, as we like to call it here.
Yeah. In the process of building this out and also thinking about the inputs, which you had to make explicit about kind of the representation of yourself, was there anything surprising or new that you discovered about yourself in this whole process?
Oh. I didn't discover anything. It just highlights how impatient I am when I'm trying to make things work, and I'm like, just work. Okay, we're going to Opus now. We're going to spend more money on my cursor. Let's go to the higher level models. I think it's persistence and it's creativity. And if you look here, he's actually in this 3D hallway.
It's like Star Wars.
Yeah, I've got some stuff on my website that's also really cool, random 3D stuff, I think. It's a good outlet. I found out that it's a good outlet for my creativity, I guess.
What was your biggest challenge when you create this, and also what will be your next project?
The biggest challenge was getting the Q&A working, because it doesn't. Well, I think I need a better camera and better lighting, but my next challenge, I would love to get my OpenClaw AI assistant running this in the background. Having access to a bunch of, not your stuff, but its own versions of things, Digital Will, and then he has his own email and all this other stuff, so you could put him on your website or put it on your website, and yeah, it would act like you. So that's last one. Yeah. Okay.
I'm pretty impressed with the latency. How does that work? So you have the API call to OpenAI, and then you're getting the text back, and then you're doing text to speech. Is that
it buffers? It buffers. So for every slide that it's on, it calls and gets all of the information and buffers the next slide, so that when it hits the next slide, it does it. So on the first slide, you'll see, if we go to the first slide here, and we restart this, hopefully, it'll actually be disabled while it's buffering that information. And then once it's actually loaded all the information, then it enables the presentation, and then it's buffered all the way through, trying to stop.
And the text-to-speech runs locally, or?
No, that's sending calls. So it goes to OpenAI, gets the text back, sends the text to 11 Labs, gets that back, and then yeah. And you can see it's ready now. So that's how long it takes, about 5 seconds.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much.
Cool. If anyone wants to ask any questions after, we'll try and get it going.
All right, everybody, let's give it up for our lightning speaker, Jethro.
Hello. All right, so I'm going to have to start with an apology because I gave this talk a couple of weeks ago at PyData and I had 20 minutes to speak. Today I've only got 5. It's a lightning talk, so I've compressed my slides as much as I possibly can. We'll see how this goes. Do yell at me if I feel like I'm going too slowly. Oh, ignore that. I thought I'd updated my slides. So this is an experiment in vibe coding that I did over Christmas, and it's got to a point when it's actually become useful. I've got some buyers, some people that are really going, oh yeah, this is cool. I want to use this thing in in a B2B sort of way, which is pretty nice. So what I want to do is show you the kind of flow that I went through, the things that have worked with Cursor, and kind of build up a picture. I'm hoping to do some interaction here with you guys. Can I get a quick sense just from all of you? I mean, it's literally AI signals. Like, who is like pretty pro using AI tools? Like, finds them pretty useful in their day-to-day flow, like AI agent tools. Right? Who's like? Okay, yeah, that's not the majority of them. Okay, is anyone here like kind of? Yeah, they're not really that good. Like, I give them a go. I see the hype, but then okay, fine. Yeah, okay, go one hand saying that. Go on, don't, you can be bold. Come on, you can be out there and you can have, okay, yeah, okay, cool. All right. Yeah, it's a real group of people, by the way, don't be fooled. Like, all the pro engineers, all the meta people, they're all like, yeah, it's fine for some small stuff, but like at the same time, it's, right. But this thing, it's worked. It's small enough. I'm actually rebuilding it right now. This is a video. I'm actually going to give you a live demo instead. So I'm rebuilding it because it takes a long time for everything to load. I realized that Leaflet was not the right tool to be using for the map. I should be using something else, but there we go, there's the heat map. So we're looking at a bunch of UK open data. So there are like 15 sources in here. I've got them all in a little info tab, so you can kind of at your own convenience go through. The UK is great at publishing open data, been doing it for years. So like census is one of them. So like it's really granular stuff. Like age, where do you live, down to the like postcode area. Things like your employment, what you do, and whether you're on benefits and your income, like loads and loads of information. In fact, you can get a good idea here just in the sidebar. Like this is the kind of stuff that we get. So we've been given something random here, which is crime rate. So we go and look, oh, what's it like? Oh, there's a big splodge here. That looks like, right, that's Manchester there. Okay, cool, fair enough. And we've got high crime down in London. Okay, cool. And oh, that's weird. We've got loads of crime over in like Peterborough. What's going on over there? That's interesting. We can zoom in and we can have a look and go, oh, look, there's people. And we've got these synthetic people. And we can have a little chat with David here. And these are all profiles that are based on, go on, bam. I think I'm just using Flash. So that's pretty slow for Flash, isn't it? Maybe it's Pro. I use Gemini. I prefer to develop with Gemini here. So the main thing, right? You've got the gist here. You've got all this stuff appearing. Right, lots of data. How long was it difficult to get all this stuff in? How long does it take to like make this thing? So this would have taken, you can imagine like many months, maybe like a year plus, a lot of like consulting costs. I'll come back to that slide. I opened 0 spreadsheets in the making of this because Cursor at the time of Christmas, Boxing Day, released a feature which is the browser automation tool, which is absolutely fantastic. So who's explored the browser automation tool with Cursor? Who's discovered what it can do? Yeah, okay, cool, only 3. Fantastic, this is new to the rest of you. So like, you don't need to go and like source your own APIs. You don't even like need an API to get data anymore. You can just say, hey Cursor, bro, can you just like go find this and download the files, put them locally, and then like send them into my database. I use Supabase, I'm a proper vibe coder. It's all about Supabase. It sticks on my Supabase, And then I just got all the data and I formatted it all in a way that's easy to query and go, optimize this so I can look at it at the national level, optimize this so I can look at it at the constituency level. Absolutely fantastic stuff. There's a little sense, again, just in a list of all of the different sources that are being used. They digest that stuff. So it's like it's a bunch of stuff, right? And it took minutes. Like, and literally, I was playing Minecraft, by the way. Did not get to the point of defeating the Ender Dragon this time. My friend gave up before we got there, and so I'm a bit bitter about it. So there's a lot of like data stuff there, just to give you a sense of the complexity that it handled. So we've got these things called output areas and local authority districts. These are kind of your like lowest level like output areas for UK geographies. By the way, we inherited this like horrible feudal system. Which is, so we've got like so many, there's like 15 different like geography like levels all the way up to like the UK as a whole, and then the sub-countries within the UK, where I thought it was a country already, the countries within the UK, all the way down to like wards, and the wards overlap in super weird ways with the output areas, with the council boundaries, are like 4 different types of councils, it's insane. And so all of this stuff, I just didn't need to think about. There's all these desperate mappings, and you can just go, bam, just do the data engineering for me, so I don't even think about it, and we get this parliamentary constituencies. By the way, the parliamentary constituencies, they changed in 2021. So the census data, which is published in, wait, when did they change? Oh, sorry, the parliamentary constituencies changed in 2024. The census was published in 2021. So now, if I want to get the data for the latest parliamentary constituencies, it needs to do this mapping. But again, not a problem, don't even need to think about it. I can do it, and I can pop everywhere on the map that you see the data, oh, this has been mapped from there. It's just using a lookup, and I can trace the lookup, all that kind of stuff. Again, don't need to think about all this horrible, complicated data engineering that I would otherwise have to do. And by the way, I got a lovely boo for this at PyData. I didn't use any Python at all. It's all in TypeScript. Yeah, it's all TypeScript. Yeah, go on, boo me. Yeah, I know, yeah. Okay, let me give a sense of who I am now, actually. Or you can stop. So, okay, I started using AI to write code without knowing how to write code. I did like a month doing a data science module at uni, and that was about it. And then I moved here. Newspeak House is also a home, so just upstairs there, I started using ChatGPT to write some scripts. I was a data scientist doing some like Python notebooks. It was very stressful, and it kind of worked out. It was great. And then the models got better. Someone told me about Cursor at some point. I used that before they raised their big seed round. And then as time went on, I thought, well, I definitely should go back and learn how to do this stuff myself at some point. But the opportunity never arose because the models got better and the tools got better at this like increasing rate. And so now I've got like a job. And I work at this company called Curve Vision. And I've got a job, and this is what happens all day. I've ended up becoming pretty good at understanding the architecture, right? So there's this level of like writing functions, writing the individual stuff that I just kind of haven't bothered to do. But you kind of go up above that, and you go, oh right, I can see that this is getting a big file. I can see that oh that's probably not the best like architectural choice for this particular problem. Let's go over it again. Let's refactor. And kind of picking up, bootstrapping how to do stuff better. What kind of mistakes do agentic tools tend to make? So, we are... Okay, that's a bit more of the architectural stuff. This was a mistake, by the way. TopoJSON was better than GeoJSON, for sure. Like, you could barely interact with the thing. But there's a big optimizer, and now rebuilding the whole thing, like I said, from the ground up, and using... If you're interested in the library, if you're doing a map thing, then come and find me later, because I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it's not TopoJSON. This guy, OpenRouter, by the way. Who has not heard of OpenRouter? Who is working? Not heard of OpenRouter? Okay, cool. Right, so what this does, this is fantastic. This is what all the OpenClaws are doing these days. It's how you get bulk responses from LLMs. Have you ever thought like, I'm really concerned about the emotional impact that AI might be having on me and my friends. Well, why don't I explore the emotional impact that 1,000 AIs can have on me right now? And you can get loads of responses all at once. So that's how I'm doing a lot of the synthetic data generation, creating these profiles, like, 2,000 at once. It's fantastic. Super fast. You can use whichever model you want as well. You can use Llama, you can use really unsafe models, everything. It's great. Okay, another little cool thing. This is a great one, the council scraper. So I had a quick look online. If I want to get the councillors in there, they've got email addresses, that's all public information. How's their attendance? How do they, they rock up to meetings? What are their specific roles, all that kind of stuff. This is all like out there, you can go visit the websites, but it's like every single website was made by a different 16-year-old that just like knew the person that was running for the councillor, and it's like, oh yeah, he could probably do it. And they're all just doing websites. So just build it. You want to go and find this, people do sell you this data, you can spend like $2,000 or whatever to buy this stuff. But why not just build a scraper? And then the scraper just does the job. It was fantastic. And then I have all of the counselor data. If anyone needs a counselor data and doesn't want to pay $2,000 for it, then just like come hit me up. I'll just like send you the CSV. Democracy Club, by the way, have also been making an API. And they've been spending a long time on it. I do know, I have spoken to these guys, and actually they are very forward AI agentic developers now. So I'm positive that they'll be rebuilding this thing and doing a much speedier job of it. But the point being that you could do this real fast right now. Did anyone else realize that you can do things real fast with AI? Yeah? Cool. All right, this is, I think, yeah, that's the last slide. So cool. I think this is summaries. Okay, who has been using AI to write code and hasn't used skills files? Hasn't used. Who doesn't know what skills files are? Okay, cool. Got a few. Who does and uses skills files? Okay, that's the majority. Okay, let's go. So let's do the, I was kind of doubtful about this. I was like, this is just like another system prompt at the start. And then I realized that I had like all these prompts, all these scripts that were going like, oh, hey, go like find the data from this like council website and then ingest it into Superbase and then go verify. I had this kind of multi-step process going. So let's just create a skill for it. So at the end of every batch of changes, I can just run a skill file and it does all of my extra, it goes and checks all the data completeness and it does all my linting and it does an architecture check to make sure it isn't making the files super long. All these extra steps, the kind of mistakes that agents tend to make. You can just have a skills file just go through at the end of every batch of changes. Very, very handy. Plan mode as well. I should have a little thing here for plan mode. Has anyone, again, same question, who has been using AI to write their code and has not been using plans? Not been using plans, not been using plans. Who has been using plans? Okay, cool, that's a lot more hands. Excellent, would recommend this. If you're not using them, you should switch to plan mode. If you're using Cursor, it's Shift Tab. If you're using Claude Code, it's Shift Tab. If you're using any other ones, I don't know. But you should get it to plan the thing. Get it to be really, really thorough. Right thing, go back and forth with it. This is the advice from the meta engineers. You need to go back and forth, doubt the plans. Remember, it looks like it's smart, but it is not very smart. It makes really stupid mistakes. You need to read everything. Don't read everything. It's really boring to read everything. But you should read the plan file. It's very important. Why am I going to put that at the end? Everyone knows about rules files. Does anyone not know about rules files? Come on, don't be shy. I know I said it in a way that's, yeah, cool, okay. So rules files, they're it's an extra bit of context. So I use 4 or 5 in every single bit of conversation. So if I'm writing in TypeScript, it'll go and intelligently fetch, oh, I've got the TypeScript rules. Oh, and it's it's doing React, so let me fetch the React rules as well. And it's the kind of mistakes that AI tends to make when it codes in those languages. It'll do user facts, and it'll try and do everything as a user fact, and you end up with these stupid, really hard to debug errors. You end up with the page refreshing all the time. You know that you maximum update depth exceeded. Is anyone familiar with the maximum update depth exceeded error appearing all the time while writing with agents? Yeah. Yeah, cool. So go React files, look at how to use effects, produce yourself. Go and look at the docs on how to use these libraries really well. Create yourself a little rules file to force the AI to do it really, really well every time. And then you end up with some lovely, neat stuff, and your code just becomes better, and you end up with much less debugging. So the kind of whole point here is you need to use a lot of guardrails. I know the whole point of vibe coding is you don't want to be thinking. Right, the whole point you're doing, you just want to be vibes. You just want it to be really easy. But the whole thing, it will make more mistakes and it will fall over if you do not put tests in there. You need your unit tests. You need to make sure, I've got enough time to do it. Yeah, cool. All right. Okay. You do your unit tests. You got to do your architecture tests. You got to do everything. It feels good. Watching it do things and make sure it hasn't made mistakes. Fantastic. Falls over much, much later. It's a much longer time before you need to go and rebuild your vibe coding project. And that's everything. Cool. All right. Questions from the audience? Yes, up front.
Hi there. This is really cool. I love it. What made you do it?
What made me do it? That's a great question. I was working on a different project, which is sort of tangential. This whole place, Newspeak Council, is all about political technology, so that's where the origin of the interest came from. This specific thing, I was trying to generate some synthetic data to train an LLM in the UK. This guy, Andrej Karpathy, who was one of the founders of yeah, cool. He released the GitHub repository that was the best LLM you can train for under $100. It's very cool. So I tried to give this a go over Christmas. Okay, let's train it on all these British data sets. We need some sovereign AI. This country needs its own AI. Yeah. And that was the point. So I thought, right, let's go get some data because there's a bunch of data out there so I can generate these realistic looking conversations. So it was all about the synthetic profiles to start with. And I thought, well, now I've got the data, I've got this whole pipeline, why don't I just stick it on a map? Turns out that everyone loves data on a map. Like really, if you're looking for a thing to produce that you think is likely to succeed as a vibe coded project, put data on a map. Everyone loves dashboards. Cool. Answer your question? Fantastic. I'm going to go to him first, and I come to you.
Great presentation, very interesting use of data. How do you ensure data is correct? Not just available, it's correct.
Yeah, very, very important question. Yeah. So, well, how would you verify that everything was correct, like yourself? If you did, are you a data scientist? Are you the kind of person that would have, would think deeply about doing this correctly?
No.
Okay. So, like the first thing that I direct people to is the information page where we go over here, bam, and you go, well, that's it. That's all the sources. And then we can zoom into a place, and we can go, well, it kind of looks about correct. I mean, it's hard to. Feels correct, doesn't it? Well, okay. I mean, can I get some suggestions? Because there's a lot of like guardrail stuff going on here. Is anyone here like a serious data scientist that is looking at this? You vibe coded the thing, and there's going to be some mistakes in it. I'm sure there's going to be some mistakes happening. Like, who has some like suggestions? Like, how could I verify that? Okay, you're also having someone else point at you, so I'm going to go for you. There's a few hands there. Okay, how should I be verifying that this is correct?
You just ask the AI to do it. You tell it.
You just want to look at such a couple there. You're going to ask the AI to do what?
So you have the sources, right? So you can go and look at the data that you're displaying here. Go find it in the data, in the actual data source.
Random spot checks.
And show it to me, and you can actually like spot check yourself, where you can see like an overall comparison. And it can be a different agent that has no context on the data that you built, so it's not like polluted.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. I like that. Yeah, some like little spot checks have like some like data police going.
Have to do anything yourself.
Yeah, that's cool. Actually, you know what? You reminded me. So when I was like showing an early version of this to someone, we did. I think they were really familiar with the council stuff. They're doing some campaigning. We're looking at. This is what it was. We're looking at some of the council finance data. He's like, that doesn't look right. He had a sense of how much councils spend on things like education and social care. And he got the spreadsheet up and he went and downloaded it and looked at it. And we found that one of the values looked wrong. But the trouble was, it was actually because of one of the remappings, because councils are notoriously the ones. In fact, I can show you the council boundaries. If I go, I think I can show you the council boundaries. Actually, no, sorry, I haven't got them in this version. So the council boundaries tend to they have these really awkward other overlaps. They're the exact thing from the feudal system that really they're not the same thing as constituency boundaries at all. So I was just remapping them onto the constituencies. And so the value looked incorrect, but was actually a good, was a good representation of the, I think it was just population-based remapping. Has anyone else got more suggestions than just asking the AI to do it? Or should we just move on to another question? Another suggestion. Who's got... You at the back, you've had your hand up.
Yeah, I've got two suggestions.
Okay, cool.
The one is for, I guess in terms of your data sources, I mean, obviously, if you build some sort of like a preference list, so for example, we did a bit of a similar piece of work on that, and restricting to say, for example, using so we were doing food safety authority stuff. So we said strictly pull the data from, let's say, government private APIs, something like that. But the other thing is that if you want a cool way to do quality control on data that is visualized, is that in the background, if there's like a JSON store where all the data is, you can set it that whatever is highlighted now, show me the full record associated with that. It doesn't quite look right. You can see the full mapping to the original data, but like in a table that's brought up alongside the visualization.
Yeah, that's helpful. I mean, I guess the funny thing is that it basically that's exactly what's happening. It's downloaded the spreadsheets, then it's put them straight into Superbase. This is the data put on a map. I think it will be hard for there to be extra errors added in. I also want to point out, because it looks all lonely in the middle here, we've got Northern Ireland over there, we've got VK over here, we've got the poor Isle of Man. I discovered making this. There's no data on this. They don't even have their own MP. They have this MP, who they didn't elect, who represents them in Parliament. And they just have this sort of multi-parliamentary system that just kind of going. So great. Anyone here for a Manx person from the Isle of Man?
No, but they don't pay tax. So
what? They don't deserve data, do they?
They don't want their data.
All right, you were the stroking shirt. I promised you a question.
So, I've got two questions. Firstly, do you watch Map Men?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. And secondly, who is the user? What is the need that you're providing for?
Yeah. Okay. So you notice there's literally a sign in button up here. I'm not going to sign in because these are private features. So there's a campaign going on somewhere in the UK. There's some by-elections happened. It's not by-elections. So there was just a by-election, Gorton Denton. I did do some Gorton Denton stuff. So where is it? Sort of like in Manchester. This one. This whole weird, funky Frankenstein-looking constituency right here. Yeah. This part here is all Reform, and this part here was like Green/Labour, and then all the Labours technically went Green. Yeah, that was that happened. So I did a little bit of work for them doing that stuff. And the same people also like, we've got another one coming up. There's some local elections coming up soon. So there's another one, and they want me to do some bits of data analysis. They really care about the synthetic data. They've got this sort of thing. They're all into like, how can we like not pay people to answer polls? That's really expensive. How can we just get LLMs to do it really fast? So that's what OpenRoot has been very useful for. Yeah. All right. Tyler. Well, hold it. Look. You can ask me questions anytime. I know you. So we'll go. Come back to you.
Reverse favoritism.
All right, go on. No, I'm going to insist.
I'm curious how you approached the generating synthetic, populace, and keeping an eye on the intersectionalism of the identities that you were creating.
Ooh, the intersectionalism of the identities.
Because if you're just looking at, we're looking at, say, age and gender, right? You can make sure that on those two factors, you are representing, on average, the population in a given area. Yeah. But if you're adding a huge number of other variables, you're ending up with a patchwork where some people may not exist. It could be very easy for, depending on how you slice it, you get something that looks great, but the individuals may or may not be.
Yeah, this is actually, you know what, I should have put a whole slide for this question, because this is actually super important stuff right here. We've got all of these different properties of people. How do they interact with each other? We've got all this census data. Say there's 20, 25 fields, information about people from an area. And there will be some, this person who's between this age bracket is wanting to have this kind of job. All this relation is probably gone all over the place. They might have dependencies across 5 different variables. That's a really hard problem. And I've done a little bit of that in some of the special work here. But I've done some basic stuff. I've got some realistic sort of UK names. I've made sure that Linda's not going to be a man, that kind of thing. So there's some basic stuff, but there's a lot of important interactions that kind of are not being modeled here. So that is on the backlog. There's a lot of things I feel like I could do with this, and yes, important question. Though for some of the chats, not in this version, unfortunately, I did something that I thought would be quite fun. I went and did some cognitive neuroscience research. That was my undergrad. I did neuroscience. I thought, wow, cool! I can make them think how people think, and turns out there's some brain areas of people reasoning about politics that they'll think maybe they're more of a reasoning person, maybe they're more of an emotional person, maybe they're more of an identity protection sort of person. So I can have them reason in these sorts of ways. So depending on the kind of question they might be provoked. What I'm yet to do is validate any kind of way in which this person that maybe a Reform voter is more likely to feel like an identity threat, or maybe someone that's this kind of voter is more likely to think in this kind of way. So those have been really interesting interactions, and those I have not got. There's not data out there to validate, and that would be a very cool thing for me to self-decide. So yes, exactly that. Those relationships, some of them are available and not put them in, and some of them are out there to go and be created and discovered. Yes. Wait, this is your second question. You've already asked me one question. Can't you? Okay. Otavi, you're waving your hand. Go on, you can have a question.
About the references, they're spreadsheets, right? So you can just do a simple referencing-based system at the end of the sources, and it's collapsible. So you can just have a preview of the lookup table.
Oh, yeah, a preview. Yeah, look up the original data. That's cool. I like that. Yeah, that's nice.
That's why you should give me a chance to, ask questions.
You want to be my marketing guy, anyway. All right. How long do I have by the way?
So just a recommendation: consider GeoServer for the map data, GeoMap Cache for caching the map data, and possibly Solar for open search.
See what we've got.
Because you mentioned Leaflet is not right for you. And Leaflet is actually a decent library, but you need to look into the back-end mapping. You've got some experience.
Is this three-phase rebuild here?
Is this crowd-driven vibe coding right now?
I know what we do. Oh, we've got these plan files. Get rid of them. Okay, you know what? This is too much to do on screen. I was trying to be flashy, but we can have a look and we can figure out how cursors decided to do it, and you can see if you agree or not. Be great. Okay, cool. Yeah, sorry. Okay. They're not going to disappear. I know how to use Git. Yeah, I'm a vibe coder. I learned how to use Git basically. Yeah. All right, I think that's it. That's all the time we've got. Thank you very much.
Let's give another round of applause for all of our speakers today. Thank you so much. Just a quick note as we end our evening, we've got a couple of upcoming events. I'm a little faster, there we go. So next month we've got the 17th of April, AI Signals number 30 at Brain Station. And then also in May we're doing an event with Women in Data on the 13th of May, excuse me. And then we'll end our night just up the road at Well and Bucket if you'd like to join us for a drink. We've still got the venue for a few more minutes, but we will head that way by 9 o'clock. All right, thank you everybody for coming out.